Before we start today's video, we're excited to bring you word from our wonderful sponsor, Audible. Audible just asked me to listen to their Audible original, Impact Winter. It's from the executive producers of The Walking Dead and the writer of Pacific Rim, and it was created exclusively for Audible. And wow, was it excellent. I can't say enough good things about it. I've never listened to anything like it. It's presented in immersive 3D audio, so it's kind of like an audio movie or TV show. In the near future, a comet hits the Earth and blots out the sun. While not ideal for humans, the sunless world is perfect for vampires. After hiding for thousands of years, they have now emerged from the shadows with evil plans for the surviving humans. The story follows two sisters. One is Darcy, who is a battle-hardened vampire slayer who wants to save humanity. The second is Hope, who just wants a normal life again. Impact Winter is an astonishing Audible original that will leave you shocked. I dare you to listen to it in the dark. Hear how a brave few fight to survive Impact Winter and fight to live again. Visit audible.com/impactwinter or text Impact Winter to 500-500 to start listening today. Number 3. Miranda and Elytte Barbour. In November 2013, 42-year-old Troy LaFera lived in Port Trevorton, Pennsylvania. He was the senior resident engineer at the Lycoming County landfill. He and his wife, Colleen, had been married for about 8 years. The couple didn't have any children. Despite being married, Troy decided to seek out some companionship on Craigslist. On the morning of November 12, 2013, the dead body of 42-year-old Troy LaFera was found in an alley in Sunbury, Pennsylvania. He had been strangled and stabbed 20 times in the chest. The stab wounds were the cause of death. The police tracked Troy's phone records. The last person he talked to was 18-year-old Miranda Barbour. The police arrested Miranda on December 6, a few weeks after the murder. Miranda initially told the police that she killed Troy in self-defense because he had groped her. Then the police talked to Miranda's 22-year-old husband, Elytte. The couple had recently moved to Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania from Dunn, North Carolina. Elytte told the police that he and Miranda had wanted to kill someone just for the thrill of it. Miranda met Troy online through Craigslist. Shortly after connecting online, they met in the parking lot of a mall, and Elytte hid on the floor of the Honda CR-V under a blanket. After Troy got into the passenger seat, Miranda told him that a sexual encounter would cost $100. Troy agreed and told her to drive to a home that he was remodeling in Sunbury. In Sunbury, Miranda parked the car and said, "Did you see the stars tonight?" That was Elytte's signal, and he sprung out from beneath the blanket. He wrapped a cable around Troy's neck and attempted to strangle him. But Troy managed to get the door open, so Miranda started stabbing him. Once they were done, they dumped the body. Then they bought cleaning materials and cleaned out the vehicle. Afterward, they went out for dinner, and Elytte said he had a burger. He said that it tasted fantastic. Elytte said that the murder happened on his 22nd birthday and their 3-week wedding anniversary. After Elytte confessed, he was also arrested for the murder. Then in February 2014, Miranda sat down for a jailhouse interview with a reporter for the newspaper, The Daily Item. Miranda admitted to killing Troy, but she said she didn't expect it to go down that way. She thought that Elytte would have strangled him. She and Elytte had talked about killing someone starting early in their relationship. They had set meetings with 2 other men before Troy, but the men didn't show up. Miranda then said a relative sexually abused her at the age of 4. Then, when she was 13 and living in Alaska, she joined a satanic cult and began killing people. She said she only killed bad people. She claimed that over the next 6 years, she murdered people in Alaska, Texas, North Carolina, and California. Miranda said she stopped counting at 22, but she thought she had killed less than 100 people. Her jailhouse interview shocked many people, and news sources worldwide published a story about her confession. The police investigated her claims. It turned out that Miranda had been sexually abused by her uncle, a non-blood relative. He was convicted and sentenced to 14 years for the crimes. But they found no evidence that Miranda killed anyone other than Troy LaFerrera. For the murder of Troy, the Barbours were looking at the death penalty. To avoid the death penalty, the couple agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder. At their sentencing hearing, Elytte apologized and expressed regret for what had happened. He said that it did not represent who he was as a person. Miranda was asked if she had anything to say, and she simply said, no. They were both sentenced to life without parole. Elytte is serving his sentence at SCI Forest in Marionville, Pennsylvania. He is 30 years old at the time of this recording. 27-year-old Miranda Barbour is serving her sentence at SCI Muncie in Muncie, Pennsylvania. Number 2. Richard Beasley. In autumn 2011, 48-year-old Scott Davis was looking for a job and a place to live. He had sold his landscaping business in South Carolina and moved back to Ohio to be close to his mother. He was scanning the job section on Craigslist, and he thought he had found the perfect job. The person who created the posting was looking for someone to care for a 688-acre patch of hilly farmland in South Ohio. The pay was $300 a week, and there was a 2-bedroom trailer that the caretaker could live in. Davis contacted the man who posted the ad. The man said his name was Jack. Jack arranged to meet Davis at a restaurant in Noble County, Ohio on November 6, 2011. When Jack arrived, he had a teenage boy with him. He introduced him as his nephew. Davis got into Jack's vehicle with him and his nephew. They drove to a wooded area south of Crawford, Ohio, where Jack parked the car. The trio got out and started walking in the woods. Davis was walking ahead of Jack and his nephew when he heard a loud click. He thought it sounded like a gun misfiring. He turned around and Jack shot him in the right elbow. Davis then ran deeper into the woods and lost the two men. He hid for about 7 hours and then made his way to the road. He came across the house and the resident called 911. Davis was taken to the hospital and treated for his gunshot wound. He told the police what had happened to him. The police searched the area where Davis had been shot. The problem was that they didn't know exactly where he had been attacked. But Davis did provide a helpful clue. He said that when he ran away, he left his hat behind. The police searched the woods for 2 days and they found Davis's hat. Close to the hat, they found a freshly dug hole. They believed it was supposed to be Davis's grave. Davis's shooting made the news. On November 11th, 5 days after Davis was shot, a woman named Deborah Bruce contacted the police. Bruce told the police that she had a twin brother, 51-year-old David Pauly, and he had lived in Norfolk, Virginia. A few weeks earlier, he had responded to an ad on Craigslist that was nearly identical to the one Davis responded to. Pauly had packed up his belongings and moved to Ohio. Bruce said the last time she talked to her twin brother was on October 22nd. She had not heard from her brother since. The police immediately saw connections between Davis's shooting and Pauly's disappearance. They were both white men who were about the same age and didn't have many close family ties. They were also lured to South Ohio by a Craigslist ad looking for a caretaker. The police brought cadaver dogs to the area where Davis had been shot. 3 days after David Pauly's sister called the police, they found a body in a shallow grave near the hat. The man had been shot once in the back of the head. Deborah Bruce was able to identify the body as her missing brother, David Pauly. The police then followed their next best lead, the Craigslist ads. The FBI tracked the postings to the home of a man named Joe Bias in Akron, Ohio. Bias claimed he knew nothing about the ads, but he did say a man he only knew as Dutch lived in the basement and used the internet as well. The police soon learned that Dutch was really 52-year-old Richard Beasley. Beasley was a street preacher in Akron. The police looked around the basement apartment and they found pill bottles with the name Ralph Geiger on them. It turned out that 56-year-old Ralph Geiger of Akron had disappeared a few months earlier. Like Davis and Pauly, Geiger had been looking for a job. He had owned a construction company, but he lost it when the economy crashed. In the summer of 2011, Geiger was living in a homeless shelter in Akron. The last time anyone saw or heard from him was on August 8, 2011, when he was leaving a homeless shelter. The police showed Scott Davis a photo of Beasley, and he said he was the man who shot him. The police wanted to arrest Beasley, but they couldn't find him. So on November 16th, they had his landlord call him. The landlord was able to keep him on the phone long enough to trace the call. The police arrested him shortly after the call. They also arrested the young man he called his nephew. He was 16-year-old Brogan Rafferty. Rafferty had a hard life growing up. His mother was addicted to crack cocaine, and his father worked the morning shift as a machinist. From the age of 5, Rafferty was preparing himself breakfast and getting himself ready for school. When Rafferty was 9 years old, he met Beasley and he became a father or uncle figure to him. When Rafferty's mother would disappear while on drug binges, the first person he would call was Beasley. On November 21st, the police received another phone call from a concerned person. Her name was Tina Kern, and no one had heard from her ex-husband, 47-year-old Timothy Kern, in 12 days. Tim had lived in Massillon, Ohio, but he was having a string of bad luck like the other 3 men. He had worked as a pizza delivery man, but then his car broke down and he couldn't afford to fix it. Tim had responded to a job listing on Craigslist to be a farmhand. After meeting with the man who posted the ad at a local restaurant, he was told he got the job. Tim reported for work on November 13th, which was a week after Davis was shot and the day before David Pauly's body was found. After that, no one saw or heard from Tim Kern again. The police thought that he fit Beasley's victim profile. 4 days after getting that call, on November 25th, the police found a man's body close to where Pauly had been buried and where Davis had been shot. The man had been buried in a shallow grave. Like Pauly, he had been shot once in the back of the head. He was identified as 56-year-old Ralph Geiger. That same day, the police searched an area behind a mall in Akron. It was never made public why they searched the area, but it's possible that Brogan Rafferty told them to explore there. Nevertheless, they found the dead body of 47-year-old Tim Kern in a shallow grave. He had been shot 5 times in the head. The police found plenty of evidence that connected Beasley and Rafferty to the 4 men and their murders and attempted murder. This included surveillance footage of them meeting the men, and both Rafferty and Beasley had several of the men's possessions. The police also had email correspondence and phone records. Davis also identified Beasley as the man who shot him and Rafferty as his nephew. Also, the bullet that entered Davis's arm was compared to the bullets pulled out of the other bodies. They were very similar to the bullets used to kill David Pauly and Tim Kern. The district attorney offered Rafferty a plea deal. In exchange for testifying against Beasley, he could have been released from prison when he was about middle age. But Rafferty turned down the deal because he didn't want to betray Beasley. 17-year-old Brogan Rafferty went to trial in October 2012. The jury deliberated for 20 hours. He was found guilty of the 3 murders. He was sentenced to life without the chance of parole. 53-year-old Richard Beasley went to trial in February 2013. One major question was, why did Beasley kill these 3 men in an attempt to kill Davis? Around the time of the murders, Beasley learned that there was a warrant out for his arrest. For 20 months, the police had been investigating a halfway home that he had been running. The halfway house was basically a prostitution ring. If Beasley had been convicted of the crimes related to the prostitution ring, he could have spent the rest of his life in prison. So, he hatched a plan. He started looking for men who he didn't think anyone would miss. He would then kill them, steal whatever money and belongings they had, and then he would assume their identities. He convinced Rafferty that he was innocent and that the police were trying to set him up. So Beasley asked Rafferty to help him kill the men so he could stay out of prison. Beasley's trial lasted for 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 12 hours. They found him guilty of all 3 murders. Richard Beasley was sentenced to death. Beasley's lawyers appealed. Because of a technicality, his sentence was overturned in January 2020. In September 2020, he was once again sentenced to death. Currently, 27-year-old Brogan Rafferty is serving a sentence at the Trumbull Correctional Institution in Warren, Ohio. 62-year-old Richard Beasley, who is nicknamed the Craigslist Killer, is sitting on death row at Chillicothe Correctional Institution in Chillicothe, Ohio. No execution date has been set. Number 1. Korena Roberts. Spring 2009 was an exciting time for 21-year-old Heather Megan Snively and her fiancé, Christopher Popp. They had been together for 3 years. In early June, Snively was 8 months pregnant. It was a boy whom they planned on naming John Stephen. The couple had lived in Annapolis, Maryland. But that spring, Popp had got a job across the country in Tigard, Oregon. Popp moved there first and set up their apartment. Then in May 2009, Snively moved to Tigard. In Tigard, she started looking for clothes and other baby items on Craigslist. On June 5, 2003, first responders were called to a home in Beaverton, Oregon. Beaverton is about 6 miles from Tigard. The caller was a man named Jan Shubin, and he said that he found his girlfriend, 27-year-old Korena Roberts, in the bathtub with a lifeless baby. He said that Roberts had been pregnant and she had given birth. Paramedics arrived and they noticed that there was a considerable amount of blood splashed around the home. Roberts and the baby were taken to the hospital. Tragically, the baby, which was a boy, was pronounced dead. The doctors examined Roberts and determined she had not recently given birth. The police then searched Shubin and Roberts' home. They found the dead body of 21-year-old Heather Snively in a crawl space. The medical examiner determined that Snively had been struck on the head repeatedly and their stomach had been cut open. However, he could not determine the cause of death. The medical examiner did not think that the baby drew a breath, which is an important distinction in Oregon law. That meant that Roberts could not be charged with the baby's murder. The police interviewed Korena Roberts. She already had 2 children, but desperately wanted to get pregnant again. However, she was unable to. Despite not being able to get pregnant, she told her friends and family that she was pregnant with twins. She even got a stroller, baby magazines, and baby formula. She met Snively online through Craigslist because they were both looking for baby clothes. They met in person for the first time the day before the murder. The police looked through Roberts' computer history and learned that she had contacted several other pregnant women before meeting Snively. Roberts admitted that when Snively came into her home, she beat her in the head with a collapsible police baton. When she was dead, she used a straight razor to cut open her abdomen and deliver the baby. In October 2010, Korena Roberts pleaded guilty to aggravated murder. She was sentenced to life without parole. 40-year-old Korena Roberts is serving her sentence at the Coffee Creek Correctional Facility in Wilsonville, Oregon. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please don't forget to check out our new channel, Paranormally Listed. Our latest video is about 3 horror movies that are based on real possessions. You can find a link to the channel on the screen now, and there's one in the description box below this video. Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.